Thank you everyone for joining. You are here at School Food Solutions Annual Food Service Training Level 2. Today we are talking about how to win friends and influence people in food service. We're going to talk about relationships because there's a bunch of people or sort of buckets or relationships I like to think of when we talk about how we have to manage our program and who we're working with. You know, some people we have more leverage or authority over than others. Some people are, the state and the federal government. So I would consider them the boss. I like to think of School Food Solutions as your AI assistant. We are here to help. You are still running your program. We are helping you with things. Hopefully we are the people you can go to get the quick answers and the quick summaries of the very complex pieces of the rest of this, program. We've also got your chef, right? So we are not, I think for the majority of the folks on this call, we are not cooking or making our own food, but we are receiving it from a vendor, another school district, another company. And so we're going to talk about how we manage and work with our vendors. We're going to talk about our office and coworkers, right? We're at a school every day with a whole bunch of different departments, and you may need something fixed on you. Something may break, and you may need to reach out to your facilities team. You may need to reach out to your eligibility or your registrar or data team. There's a lot of other, cooks in the kitchen, if you want to mix metaphors here, of people we're working with on our sites. Finally, the last part of this presentation is we're talking about our customers, our students. The whole reason we're doing this is we're here to actually feed kids and get them access to food during the school day. And, that I want to ground us in how that is the reason we will jump through all the compliance hoops we do. All right, let's start with a little refresher first. The SFA, the School Food Authority, that's you. You're the one that's ultimately maintaining this program. So buck stops with you. You're the one that is required to meet the training requirements. You're communicating with us, voicing problems, managing the day-to-day food service, and completing the daily documentation. You are the eyes and ears and the people at the school sites, and so you're the ones that are doing all of those things. School Food Solutions, FSS, that's me, that's Claire, that's our team, the forms team back in New Orleans. We are helping you do the heavy lifting on the back end, right? So this is completing annual applications, periodic state reporting, edit checking, filing, drafting, and submitting your claims and other resource management requirements. We are reviewing CEP eligibility and CEP applications for those that can qualify. We are doing the trainings, much like the one you're sitting in right now. We assist and come out and do monitoring visits, and when it's your time, we help you with your audits. Finally, there's your vendor or your FSMC. They're the ones that are cooking. They're providing you the meals. They're delivering the meals. They're providing the production records and transit logs. They're responding to those questions about the menu, meal pattern, and things like that. And they're following the agreement from how we procured the contract, right? So there may be some contracts that function a little different than others, but the idea is that they are the ones figuring out how to get you the food. All right, let's start with the boss. That is the federal and state government. We've got two bosses, right? It's a federal program that's administered through the state of California. So I've got a couple of updates here, but this is also where I want to spend some time and dig deeper into the meal pattern. I think you don't have to be a veteran of this program to realize that they are very specific about what we serve and how we serve it. And so we are going to talk about that. Let's first talk about reimbursement rates, because we got some good news. We're getting more money this year. So I want to give a shout out to Lunch Assist. They put together, I'm always impressed because they put together a better chart than even the USDA or the CDE could put together. And this is the data you need to know. So if you are a high FRL site, you'll be receiving $3.80 for your breakfast and $5.51 for your lunches. Basic funded or lower FRPM schools will get slightly less than that, but this is still an increase from last year. And so this is just good news. This is good news because we've seen high food costs, high inflation, and And part of that is, we're not the ones doing the shopping. We can't negotiate our food contracts. We're going through our vendors. And when their food costs, their food costs were going up faster than their contractual rate was going up. And that causes limitations of what they can bring us. When their contracts can go up and when our reimbursement rates go up, it means that they can then take their higher sale prices for what they're selling to them. Is they can, sorry, I'm making this sound very complicated. They could spend more money on food so you have better food. And that's a good thing. And we want to see more money go into this program. And we want to work closely with everyone so it ultimately trickles back down into food options. You don't need to do anything. This will happen automatically as we renew your applications in CNIPS. And so that is good news. We also have a new law in California, Senate Bill 1383. The idea of this law is that it requires local jurisdictions to monitor and impose penalties if businesses, including schools. So unfortunately, schools are lumped into a larger group of what they call tier 2 waste producers. If you're throwing organic waste into your landfill trash bin. And so this went into effect last January. So this is a rule that we all should be complying with. There's going to be a phase in time because there's so many limitations about how schools can get in compliance with this. So 2 things I want you to take away from this, that that there is a law that dictates how you throw away your both recyclables and your organic waste. And ultimately that you have broad discretion on how you do this. So don't panic. You have 2 things that you can do, and not all schools have the same ability to do them. But here's what I like. Here's the way I like to think about it. Is the goal is not to let the garbage landfill be the first destination for any consumable food. So if you have food that can still be eaten, it's still good, we want to recover that. So the first thing we can do is recover. And that could be anything from our share tables that we talked about on the last slide, to donating it to local food banks and pantries, to reserving in a different location, whether we're just putting it in the teacher's room or making a little fruit basket in the front office. Again, you can never put it back into your reimbursable meal program, but we can give it away other places. I have I don't think they're on the call today, but I have a school that has pigs and other farm animals that live on the school campus, and those pigs eat real well because they are the garbage disposal for all of the leftover meals and produce. That's so awesome. So that also is a great way to divert. I mean, again, if you can't have a farm on your school, I understand. But for, if you have chickens or if you have that, that counts as diversion. Or that counts as recovery. I guess that's a little both if you're feeding animals. But then you could also divert it, right? And so this is the idea is you have your organic waste bin where available in your area. I want to be very careful and not say compost, because at no point are you required to start a compost pile at your school. Some of your schools are located in places where that could be a fire hazard. Don't do it. Other schools are just located in a place where it's going to smell and you don't want to do it for that reason either. No one's requiring you to compost on site. But you should be working with your trash haulers to figure out what are your options for organic waste pickup. And also, you have broad discretion about what can be recovered and what can be diverted. So when in doubt, throw it out. Again, we're not going to be perfect here, and we're all getting used to these new rules. But those are the headlines you need to know. As specific questions come up, let's talk about those individually. The other piece I want to talk about here that I don't have a slide for, but Karen brought up, which is, I think, a really good question about the state meal mandate. So I think that fits well under the BOSS section of our relationships PowerPoint. And so with the state meal mandate, again, from our first presentation, you're on the hook for breakfast and lunch daily, right? But not all of our schools run a full school day, right? So you might do half days, or you might have your TKs, your kinders, your preschools, or your younger grades that only go a half day. So what are our requirements for those? And the language of the program is, we really are leaning on the word offer. We want to make the food available. So for example, if you have a TK class where half go in the morning, half go in the afternoon, you do not have to serve breakfast again in the afternoon. You just need to let those afternoon families know that if they want to come, that they are allowed to come on campus in the morning to eat that meal with the morning kinder class, or vice versa, right? So the late class or the early class can stay for lunch on campus and consume that meal. Not required to, but we will offer that to them, right? So you don't need to do special or separate service times. Same thing with half days, right? Where you might be ending at 12:30 when normally you would be serving lunch at 12:30. We still want to make the lunch available, and it is still, we still need to have a congregate meal setting, meaning that we should have a safe and supervised place on campus where they can eat it. But I think you can be a little bit looser with dismissal. So if they choose to take the food off campus with them, I would let them, right? So we gave them the food, the option to take the food. We give them the option to eat on campus. And you know what? If their parents there right away and wants to pick them up, then we'll let them go. What you'll want to be mindful of is you're going to order less those days, right? Like, so if you know most of the kids are going to run off campus at 12:30 at a Friday, don't order the same amount you ordered on Thursday unless you really are confident they're all going to stay. All right. That is a slide I need to make, Karen, for the first one. That's a really good topic to talk about. All right. A lot of you, so if you are an existing SFA, there is a good opportunity that you received kitchen infrastructure and training funds. If you're a new SFA in the last year, you probably did not, or there may have been circumstances where your SFA chose not to accept these funds. All of that to say is this is an update and a reminder that these two buckets of money are state funds. So they shouldn't be in your restricted food account. These are in your general fund. They had updated, for the first round, they updated the rules that there is no encumbrance deadline, meaning that you have more time to spend them. And I anticipate that that will be the same for the second round of funds. However, there's no benefit in saving these. So if you've got child nutrition kit funds, infrastructure funds, you can spend those on equipment. You can spend those on building modifications. And so the takeaway here too is these are state dollars. So if you see like the USDA approved list, that's for child nutrition dollars. These are not restricted to child nutrition dollars. These are state dollars designed to be spent to, and there's a handful of stated goals, but ultimately it's expand meal service. So if you've got something that can help your site expand meal service, you should use these dollars on it. And so I just want to put a plug in there for those, because at some point they may ask for them back, and I don't want us to have to leave any money on the table. All right. We've got our meal pattern. Again, our bosses are paying us to serve meals, but they're only going to pay us if we serve them a very specific way. And boy, are they specific about how they want it. And yes, they double check. That's what your audit is. All the audit waivers are over. If we hadn't talked about that, there's no more taking photos. There's no more videos. This is someone from the state of California is going to walk out onto your site and spend the day there watching you serve food. So we want to make sure you feel confident on how you're going to serve it. All right, this should be refreshed. These are the components you're going to offer daily. They may be shaped in different forms, but every day we've got fruits and vegetables, grains and proteins, and a choice of milk. That is a reimbursable meal for lunch. For breakfast, we're at the very minimum going to have fruit, grain, choice of milk. We may have meat alternates. We may have vegetables. Both of these, and then same thing with lunch, right? We're going to have the 5 components offered. They always are going to take a fruit, vegetable, or both in any of these combinations, but not required to take a milk, although the rule is we offer a choice of milk daily. Just one quick overview again. We offer 5 components. They don't have to take all 5, and they definitely don't have to take a milk. The only thing they have to take is a fruit, vegetable, or both. Now, I'm excited, I think one of the things that you can do with an offer versus serve pattern is you can meet that minimum required in a variety of ways. So that could be a mix of different fruits, a mix of different vegetables, and a mix of fruits and vegetables. Offer versus serve is required at the high school level. It is optional at breakfast and optional at lunch, but honestly, I can't think of a good reason to do it because we just went over that new Senate Bill 1383, and so now you're legally on the hook for your food waste. We want to create as little of it as possible. Offer versus serve and your shared table are going to be the best ways to prevent excess food waste, right? Like just less stuff you have to deal with if we're not creating it in the first place. here is the meal pattern. Now, the nice part with the vended meal model is our vendors are responsible for menuing these in proper portions. But I want the big takeaway here is that at the high school level, normal. I've heard the feedback of my high school entrees look the same as my middle school entrees, and the answer is they probably are. The difference between a high school meal and a junior or middle school meal is going to be, and I should say most times, but sometimes the entrees may be slightly larger, but most of the time it's going to be the amount of fruit and vegetables you're going to offer to them. So K through 5, 6 through 8, we offer a half cup, but 9 through 12, we always offer a whole cup. Fruit can look different. And fruit counts as a fruit, right? So we can offer it as fresh fruit, as frozen fruit, as pasteurized fruit juice, as long as that's not our predominant fruit that we offer. We can offer it as dried fruit, like raisins, craisins, or dried apple crisp. All of those are interchangeable. If they credit for a half cup, they count as your minimum fruit requirement for that day. Hopefully your vendor's bringing you a variety of things, and if they aren't, ask them to. Vegetables are a little bit more complicated. Now, vegetables, we always offer 3/4 of a cup daily. Sometimes this will be in the entree. So you might have some sauce on your pizza or some corn in your tamale or something that might put a portion of vegetable into the entree. But most vended meal models still will offer the credible amount of vegetable as the side vegetables. That would be your bag of baby carrots, your bag of broccoli, things like that. You'll notice we always offer 3/4 cups, although the minimum they're required to take is a half cup. And at the high school level, we always offer a full cup. And we offer different vegetables in different subcategories. And so the question that usually comes up is, why do I have so many baby carrots? And one of the reasons, well, one reason is your vendor might be just giving you a lot of baby carrots. If you're not getting a variety of vegetables, that's a problem. We want to talk to the vendor because you should be seeing you should be seeing this mix of vegetables all week, right? So each week you should be getting something for these categories. Now, the red-orange subgroup where your baby carrots live is the highest contribution here at both the lower grade levels and the higher grade levels. And if anyone's ever heard the saying, eat the rainbow, that's what they mean, is we want to get a variety of vegetables in our diet. Sometimes beans aren't the easiest thing to fit into the meal pattern. And so if you get a cold bean salad or some hopefully if you're getting chickpeas, you're getting them in the form of hummus, but not always, right? And so that if you're saying, well, why are they putting, chickpeas on a salad? Well, we've got to find a way to get you a half cup of beans every week, and putting them in a salad might be the best option for that particular meal pattern. So, we can always talk to our vendors about why they're offering and what there's credit for. It'll say that on your production records, but just know if you see broccoli on the menu, they're not trying to torch you. The USDA says we got to provide some dark leafy greens. Oh, I always surprise myself when it's time for the quiz. All right, everyone get ready with your thumbs up and your thumbs down, or you can put it in the chat, because I want you to tell me if you're running the point of sale and a student comes up to you with this tray of food. So we've got a half cup of orange, a half cup of broccoli, a half cup of romaine lettuce, a hamburger, a beef patty on a whole wheat bun, and a milk. Is this meal reimbursable? I see thumbs up. More thumbs up. Awesome. Lots of thumbs up. This one's easy. Also, what I also say on this one is, even if you didn't know the meal pattern, there's just a lot of food on this plate, right? So just by sheer guess, you could say, well, they filled up every little compartment. This has to be reimbursable. If your students take lots of food, your job at the point of sale gets really easy because they all have reimbursable meals. So you're not trying to do this offer versus serve calculus in your head in real time. You just see full trays and they're taking things. And that's both, they're getting the value of the meal, the nutrition value of the fruits and vegetables, and you don't have to think about it. You just send them through the line, right? What about this one? They don't want broccoli. Can you still get paid back if this is all they take? Yeah, that's an easy one too. There's still a vegetable on there. They didn't take the full cup of vegetable offered, but they took at least a half cup, and that counts, right? What about this one? They did not take any vegetable. Are we cool with that? Yeah, no, yeah, no. I realize there's a little tricky. The orange blends into the orange tray. We got a half cup of fruit on here. Remember, it's a fruit, vegetable, or both. And so they're fine. This is reimbursable. This is actually 4 components because we've got the grain, the protein, the milk, and the fruit. This is a good meal. And you know what? If they weren't going to eat the vegetable, fine. Don't take it. Don't throw it away. We don't have to figure out how to compost it. What about this? Can they take this? Yep. People are picking up. It's got the fruit and milk's not required. And it's, even though it's 2 items, it still is 3 components, and components are what we count. What about this one? It's easy because you got to take a fruit, vegetable, or both, and there's still 3 components, but one's not a fruit or vegetable. You're sending them back through the line. Or better yet, don't send them back through the line. That's going to waste everyone's time. Just have a little basket of apples or fruit at your POS station. Just set a fruit on their tray and tell them to have a wonderful day, right? We can keep them moving. If all they want to do is put that on the share table, if they roll their eyes at you and put it on the share table, you still got $5.50 back. You were covered. All right. We've got a vegetarian. They didn't want the beef. Can we get reimbursed for this? Part is kind of a trick question. Kind of depends on what grade level. So short answer is yes. This is still 3 components, and at least one is a fruit or vegetable, right? Now, if this was at the high school level, we'd want to make sure that if they're choosing not to take the entree, that they're taking either a full cup of fruit or a full cup of vegetable, because it's got to be 2 full components and a serving of fruit or vegetable. All of that to say is, yes, if a kid just wants this, I would serve it to them. If you're in high school, I'd have them take 2 fruits, and then you make sure you're covered. But the entree is not much like the milk is not required. The entree is not required. This is going to create havoc on your production records, right? Because you order your meals by entree count, so your entree count's going to be lower than your total meal served, and that's okay as long as you kind of remembered, oh, some kids didn't take an entree, but they did take a compliant combination of fruits and vegetables and a milk. This also, I think this is the coolest part of this program, because this helps you out when you've got your but I only want us, right? So a kid is trying to be sneaky and just take a chocolate milk and walk away. Well, let them take the chocolate milk. Just make them take an apple and a bag of baby carrots with it. If they put the apples and the baby carrot on the share table, that's fine. You still got paid back, and they still have the opportunity to eat a compliant meal. If you can talk them into trying the apples and the baby carrots too, you got extra credit. At breakfast, we count items, not components. So a compliant breakfast could be 3 bananas. If you have, I mean, again, assuming you've got extra fruit and you're okay with that, but like that could be, 2 bananas and a chocolate milk is a reimbursable breakfast. And so that's okay. That only works at breakfast, double counting fruits, but you could. And on the days where you don't want the entree, if you give them a fruit, a vegetable, and a milk, that's reimbursable. At the high school level, we're just going to double up on either the fruit or double up on the vegetable, and that's reimbursable as well. That's $5.50 back for your school and your meal program. Let's make it easy, and we can do, so we do our trainings with you at the beginning of the school year, but you can train your students as well. And so the more you can market the program, and again, we'll give you the posters to put you're required to put the posters up, and we'll talk about the other required postings, but that doesn't mean you can't present at assemblies at your school or present at teachers' meetings or put resources into the classroom or do a presentation with toy fruits and show the kids what they need to take. Again, those work. A presentation with toy fruit works a lot better at the TK, kinder, and first grade level than probably the high school level, but you know your school better than I do. But the more we can get in front of the students to explain our expectations for the line, the smoother your line goes, because they don't want to be in line either, right? So if they can move through that line and get to their lunch or their recess, they're going to be happy as well. vendors are a great resource. Obviously, vendors are also incentivized for you to serve more meals, because then they get to deliver you more meals, and so they'll help you out with resources, whether it's additional signs or tablecloths or posters or bins or things like that. So talk to your delivery drivers, your food vendors, and see what they have where they can help you use a variety of colors to make your service line more attractive. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Again, schools don't have a lot of money, but you can go on Amazon, you can go to the dollar store, anything, even just plastic tablecloths and little bins or baskets to put the fruit in is a really big upgrade than just cardboard boxes. Finally, the more we can make it convenient for the kiddos, so we can pre-plate some of the options, right? If your kids like fruit, I might put the entrees with a fruit already kind of but kind of set in a tray, and then we can set the vegetables and the milk choice next to it, right? And that still gives them choice, but also just like if they just grab a tray, you've got a reimbursable meal. All right, if you zoned out for all of that, this is the only slide I truly want you to remember, which is you only have to say one sentence. This also works if you have to train up a volunteer with 3 minutes before meal service. They only have to say one sentence, which is, please take a fruit, vegetable, or both. The kids get 3 options with their entree. They can take a fruit, they can take a vegetable, or they can take both with their entree. And if that's all you remember, you're running a compliant meal program. All right, let's go real quick through breakfast, because again, it was slightly different than lunch, but the whole concept's the same. Also, your breakfast service might look a little different. You may not choose to do that through your same service line. I like to say, take breakfast to where the kids are in the morning. Do they congregate in the hallway? Do they congregate in the front of the school? Is there a pickup and drop-off line? Be where they are and let it and hand it out. Again, breakfast could be very simple. It could be a bagel and a banana. Those are very portable and very easy to just like hand out and let the kids walk away with it. And again, $3.80 is the higher level reimbursement you'd be receiving if you're serving those. Every day you've got your fruits, your grains, and your fluid milk. Milk is not required, but is required to offer. It's not required to take, it is required to offer. Still have to take a fruit. You really won't see vegetables out in your service line. But you may see more meat alternate, because that was an update with the USDA meal pattern. I think that's great. People like sausage and egg sandwiches in the morning. People like yogurt. Grab and go is a really easy option. You don't feel obligated to go buy a bunch of paper bags. You could, but you don't have to. You could just the idea is that you're pre-plating or pre-bagging a compliant meal. So if it's a breakfast sandwich and a pear, like in this example, or a pancake sausage stick and an apple, these can just be prepackaged, ready to roll. Have a box of bananas and have the milk nearby. They don't need to take this though, because both of these are reimbursable. Same idea. Again, I say this because it's the question I get most often. With offer versus serve, your kiddos do not have to take a milk. And that's great. Breakfast. This is, okay, similar chart to what we showed for the lunch offer versus serve meal pattern. I want you to memorize that there is a whole cup offered, right, for breakfast at any grade level. So if you're a 12th grader or you're kindergartner, you can take a whole cup for breakfast. Most whole fruits are only a half cup. So what this means is if you order 100 breakfast entrees, and you don't also modify your order with your vendor, they may deliver you 200 pieces of fruit, because they have to offer a whole cup with each of those breakfast entrees. I've never seen a school serve all of that fruit with offer versus serve. It's just a lot of fruit, especially for the little kids. You can reduce that down. You need to have over 100%, because mathematically, the first and last person should have the opportunity to take 2 fruits. So if you order 100 entrees, the absolute lowest number you could receive would be 101. You're going to need more than that, but it should be closer to the 110, 120 range, not the 200 range, right? So we're offering a whole cup, but the minimum to take is a half cup. Most pieces of fruit are a half cup. So we want to get that number of total fruit closer to what we're actually going to serve. Some kids take 2, most kids take 1. What do we need? 110, 130, 140. Find a number that works well for you, but modify that and work with your vendor to make sure they're not over delivering fruit, because again, it's now our problem with SB 1383. We need to neither recover or divert that. So it's less work for you if you receive less food that's not going to be consumed. And again, also what I will say is for us that have, weekly, biweekly, monthly check-ins, or if you're ready to have a monthly, weekly, biweekly check-in, this is something we can talk about specifically to help you dial in your order so that you have enough, but not too much. All right, saying the same thing in a different way. All grade levels get a whole cup of fruit. The minimum they have to take is a half. Grains, we're always offering whole grains. With the new update is that meat alternate meat may be offered in place of grain up to 2 times per week. So you can't do scrambled eggs every day, but you could do it 2 days a week. All right, going through this real quick. Is this one reimbursable for breakfast? Yeah. Again, the tray's full. You got a bunch of stuff on there. What about this one? This one is reimbursable. Yeah, good. It is, we got that banana. And again, we've got 1 item, but it's a meat, it's 2 components. That's 3 components, 1's a fruit. What about this one? No fruit. Easy. It's no fruit. This one, same question as before. Again, with breakfast, we count items. There's 3 items, at least 1's a fruit. It's definitely reimbursable. What about this one? I hope your vendor is able to offer these on your menu. This is absolutely reimbursable. It also just looks really good. We've got an ounce of yogurt, an ounce of grain, and we've got a half cup of fruit all in one portable cup. Your kids can, if they run away with that cup, you can get reimbursed. You're still going to put out, again, another piece of fruit and the choice of milk, because again, it's not a dairy requirement. It's a milk requirement. So yogurt counts as your protein, not your dairy. Your milk is your only thing that counts as your milk. But if they don't want the milk and if they don't want the other fruit, this is reimbursable, $3.80 back in your school food account. Someone double checks. That someone is the USDA. They do it through your state audit. California is on a 5-year cycle. So, if you just had one, you got some time, but they'll look at your actual service. They can also ask for paperwork for prior years. So just because you're not under audit this year does not mean that you don't need to do your paperwork. They can always dig. They can also surprise you too. We thought that was just a sort of a veiled threat, or just sort of a, it had happened to summer schools this year in different states where the USDA popped in. So they can come by. All right, let's talk about me and School Food Solutions. We are your AI assistant. I want to talk specifically about, so most of the stuff we do with your school sites has not changed. We're still here. We've helped you become your SFAs. We help you roll over your POSs. We help you train. We help you mail your letters. We help you submit monthly claims. One of the things that has changed in California for this next year is they revised the state meal mandate. And so so 2 things have happened. One happened at the federal level, and the other one happened at the state level. So the first one is the threshold for CEP has been lowered. We looked at your data from March and April. If you were able to opt into CEP, we had a conversation about it, and I think 100% of the schools we recommended to opt into CEP did opt into CEP. The only ones that were where not all of your sites evenly fit into the program, and we did not complete that application for you until everyone would qualify. For our schools that were 40% more, sorry, I should clarify. These percentages are your ISP based on your direct cert list from CalPADS. If you know what that means, great. If you don't know what that means you probably have to forward any of my email requests to your data person, right? But this is something that's getting tracked at some level at your school site. Your identified student population, or ISP, are your students that are receiving some sort of other benefits. That could be SNAP, that could be Medi-Cal, that could be TANF, they could be identified as a homeless, foster, migrant youth, or they could have someone else in their household that qualifies and we've extended benefits to them. Those are the numbers that make up these percentages we're talking about, not your total free and reduced count. I wish it was. Those numbers are usually traditionally higher, but these are the numbers we look at to opt you into CEP. These are also meaningful for the Sunbucks benefit. So we want to extend these to as many families that would qualify. And that's the state level rule that changed this year, is that now we need monthly DC lists as a condition of receiving the state funding in California. We're gonna, we'll keep you accountable. It used to be 3 times annually. Now it's every month. So my team will be reaching out and requesting more data. For the most part, this is pretty simple. The person who's going to has CalPEDS access is just going to make a calendar reminder once a month to email us, or I should say, upload that file to us. But this is something that is different from years past. The goal is that we capture more families, both to get the full reimbursement from the USDA from anyone that would qualify as direct certified, as well as adding those families to the Sunbuck registry. For any of my schools on this call, and I see a handful of them that are not part of the CEP or Provision 2 program, you're still collecting free and reduced applications or income surveys, or I should say everyone's still collecting income surveys. Even if you're not directly certified, as long as you can qualify via income, you can still receive that Sunbucks benefit at the end of the year. So if all of that to say, the headline of this is, if families ask you, why should I complete this application? Food's free no matter what. We say, well, if you still would qualify by income, there's other benefits you can receive. And it helps our school with funding. Finally, the last things with School Food Solutions, which we're helping you with, is your point of sale setup. We are double checking them all now. My team's great at it, but sometimes things either change overnight with the sync, or sometimes things get missed. We always want you to log on to your POS, check all of those things before school starts, right? Where's your charger? Does your login still work? Are you seeing the students in there and the grades you're expecting to see in there? Double check all of that to make sure that you're ready to go for your first day in school. You may still be collecting those paper or online income applications or FRL applications that we just talked about. That's still important, right? And so you still want to send those to us in a timely manner. We still need to issue those letters to families, and we want to make sure we qualify as many kiddos as possible. And again, same thing with data syncs. Data syncs are a whole other challenge. And so if you are not seeing the data come in the way you're expecting, let us know and we will help you sort that out. Finally, if you do need a refresher POS training, reach out to us as soon as possible. We'll get one scheduled. I want to do that training in your point of sale system so you see exactly how it works. All right, let's talk about your meal vendor. So they're your chef. They're the ones that are controlling what is offered, what is compliant, and what is reimbursable. They'll present menus to you, and you can then make selections on there. The most important thing here is you want to build a relationship with this company, because especially your delivery drivers, they're number one, you're going to see them every day, but they're the ones that have the free hot sauce hanging out on the truck, right? So like you want to be in good with that person, number one. But also, there's a lot of limitations with the meal program. A lot of them are not something your vendor can control. It's truly set out in stone by the USDA. How many calories, how much sodium, how much sugar, how many times can we offer these things? What can we offer? What state or country can you buy them from? And what is the threshold and exception of when we can deviate from those standards? Those are all parts of the program. It is incredibly restrictive. Also, they got to then put it in a truck and drive it to you and get it to you for less than $5 a meal. That's a pretty hard task. But all that to say is there's still things that they're still open to feedback. They're still able to modify things. And so we want to have an open communication and dialogue with them. We also want to assume best intentions, because again, they want your kids to eat just as many meals as you want them to eat. Everyone's aligned with getting kids to eat food, right? They sell more, you get more reimbursement. Everything works better when everyone's eating. But mistakes happen, and we also want to give them feedback about that too. So if there is an issue, we want to document it both in photo and writing, right? So if you can take pictures, great. If you can send an email, great. Be specific, do it promptly. Give them the opportunity to fix it if possible, and CC me, because if it's an escalating problem or a frequent trend, I also want to help intervene on both of your behalfs, because I want to make sure it gets fixed and that your kids are getting good food that they can eat and that your days are manageable. And also save the food, right? You got something that spoils, save it until they tell you they can toss it, right? But a lot of times, I don't know if they have a lab they send it to. I like to think that like a team of scientists will receive it and then analyze it. And that's probably what's happening. And we want to give them the opportunity to do that. All right. With that, though, you still have to double check. So so there's a lot of things that the vendor can do for you. One of the things they can't do is monitor themselves, right? That would be like letting your kids grade their own math tests. Scores would be awesome. Comprehension might be concerning. So here's the thing is we want to make sure that we're looking at our programs. We are reviewing 100% of our lunches, 100% of our lunch sites. And we're looking at 50% of lunch service at our breakfast sites. And then we're looking at snack, if we're serving snack at the beginning of the school year in the first 4 weeks, and again before the end of the school year. The goal is to have all of these done by February 1st. That's the state deadline. And honestly, if you're doing it any later than that, you're not going to make the changes. You're going to run at the end of the school year. But the idea is, and School Food Solutions comes out, and if you've ever done one with me, we can, we can either show you virtually or I can come out. But the idea is, there's 2 pieces of paper I like. I've got my compliance checklist with both the signage and things like, is there potable water available? And we've got the CDE checklist, which is questions like, how are we counting and claiming things? And what was offered today? And, how many meals were served? Did this pass an ed check? Those sort of questions. They're fairly simple yes or no checklists. But this will give you an idea of what's actually happening on the ground. And so these do need to be completed annually. We can help you. The other thing is we want to help and we want to get our eyes on these. So just, being able for you to videotape your service or take photos of it and then send me production records, we can do one together virtually to give you an idea of how it works, what we're looking for. And if we see things that are concerning, what a correction action would be, so we can tell the school to correct what they're doing. And then also we want to do, if we do have corrective actions, we want to go out there within 30 days to verify it was fixed, right? All right. The final piece, and I talked about this in the last training, but I'll say it again, is, again, part of this is, we're getting our components, they're prepackaged, they're probably going to be in different containers. We want to be a good partner with our vendors. We do want to be there for the handoff to validate both what was received and what wasn't received, right? And so this is both for food safety and just for your accounting purposes, very important. So I say, do I have to count all the fruit that's delivered to me? And yes, short answer is yes. Again, we can kind of eyeball some of that. You should be doing daily, you should be verifying what you receive. And if you are not receiving what you're expecting, we should be contacting the vendor to fix this, to clarify or fix the situation. Again, sometimes your vegetable is part of your entree, so you might not get an entire vegetable on the side. Sometimes your vegetable is on the side and got left on the truck, and if we can figure that out while the driver's still there, it's really easy to pull it off the truck. Again, production records, this is the story of your meal service. These are the ones we looked at on the other training. What I want to talk about here as far as the partnership is, that it's been a tough place to be a food vendor. High food costs, high gas costs, labor shortage. I'm glad they're all still, they're not all still in business, but the ones that are around, I'm glad are still here because they're a big asset to our school. We don't, I don't think any of us, I think everyone would love to be making homemade food, but when you think about how many mouths you got to feed, that's a lot of work. And so we've got a really good system set up here when we've got options, and it may not be perfect, but it keeps us compliant and it's manageable, right? Because we're not a restaurant, we're a school, and we got to do a whole lot of other stuff. And so all of that to say is, again, it's not that we can't hold I think we want to look at this as a long-term partnership and how we can grow over time, where what we're doing today is probably not what it's going to look like in a year from now or 2 years from now, right? And so there's grants, there's funds, there's things coming from different directions that we can invest in our program. But the thing that is going to allow us to grow our program is a good relationship with our vendor and the high participation from our students. If we don't have either of those, then also just not fun to come to work, right? And so that's also part of why I really want to hammer on that. That is a relationship that we want to enter into with good faith and grow, because once it starts working really well, it makes your life easier, right? Like it's a well-oiled machine. Once it's a well-oiled machine, it goes real smooth, and if it's not, it's real bumpy. All right. Speaking of smooth or bumpy, let's talk about your facility and your coworkers. Mainly your facility, I think. I'm sure all your coworkers are lovely. Your facility might be a challenge, and so that is okay. We talked about the varying different models, and we make it work, right? And so there's a few things that we still have to do at our facility, which is we've got to have our signs. We have to have that. So no matter what, we got to find some wall space, whether it's on an A-frame sign or a cork board, or if we got a big, nice wall, we're going to have that "And Justice for All" poster. We're going to have our health permits to operate. That is, you may have a non-traditional facility, but you've got to have a very traditional health permit. You'll also receive your health inspections. We always remind you, we like to say, get a spring and a fall. You should have 2 annually. If your health department is not staffed up enough to come out twice a year, we want to get a letter from them that says they cannot. And if you get documentation, you're covered for that requirement. We have our offer versus serve signage. Claire and I are sending out a big email at the end of this training, and it'll have, I believe we'll have links to the signage in there. These are, if you've got them from years past, nothing's changed, you can keep the ones you have. We want to put up our monthly menus. We want to do that both on our school website and in our servery. The monthly menu is what's required, but it's that little grid. No one goes up and reads it. If you can get a whiteboard and write what is available that day, I think that's super helpful, because what's the first question every kid has? What's for lunch day? Write it big, draw a picture. I had one school, I don't think they're on the call today, their art teacher would come by every day and draw what was on the menu. So again, that's totally extra credit, but if you got an art teacher that's looking to burn some time in the morning, save some extra food and bribe them to draw for you. We want our wellness policy posted as well. If you don't know where or what your wellness policy is, we're going to talk later. That's something we're going to be working on with all of our schools this fall, is reviewing and publishing your wellness policies. Finally, we want to have our USDA discrimination complaint form available. Again, this is very rare. I know with universal meals, not that any of you would discriminate anyway, but with universal meals, it makes it really easy to offer access to food to everyone, and that's the whole goal, and that is the requirement of the program. If someone feels like we did not, and this was what we talked about in our civil rights training earlier, they can file a complaint with the USDA, and they will send the CDE out to investigate. So we want to not get in that situation. Signs and posting, again, this is kind of what it looks like. You've got your Justice for All poster, your offer versus serve sign. It could be on a bulletin board, it could be on a sign you have to drag around. Hopefully you got at least a wall, at least a little bit of wall space like this you can dedicate to your paper and policies. And so then it's all in one place, and when I come out, it's very easy for me to complete my checklist for you. You can also have fun with it. I wish I could credit the school that we took this photo at. It was not one of mine, but I think this is great. I kind of know what it means, I think, but I'm not going to tell you what I'll have to Urban Dictionary it and figure it out. It's funny if it gets kids to laugh and have a good day and come through your line. That's the goal, right? Like we're here to help kids. Public notification, again, and Justice for All sign is one of the other things you cannot get away from having this posted, and we will. Fun story, the USDA and the CDE have still not figured out printing contracts. So if School Food Solutions printed a big stack, so I might have given one to you when I came out to your site, or you're on the hook for printing it on your own. If you're printing it on your own, it's got to be in color, and it's got to be 11 by 17. All right, let's talk about if you have a snack shack, if you sell food as a fundraiser, if you have a student store, if you sell teachers to meals, or sell meals to teachers, or if you're even thinking about doing this, let's talk about what that really means, right? So anything you're selling to kids is a competitive food. So to be a competitive food, it's got to be sold to students on campus during the school day. School day is midnight in the morning through a half hour after dismissal. So you can't beat the bell in the morning, right? It's the whole morning. If it's going to fit into any of those categories, it's got to meet the Smart Snack guidelines. Good news, bad news, all the major brands have figured out how to reformulate their foods. They have Smart Snack Pop-Tarts and Doritos and Flamos and Rice Krispie treats and vitamin waters. And there's a whole host of things that can meet those requirements. And so if you did want to sell things on campus, you have options. They're available on Amazon. They're available at Costco. Couple of words of caution. Not all of the Smart Snack style products are always packaged in the compliant size. So there's still work on your end to double check what is available and compliant. We'll send you out a link to the Smart Snack calculator, but every item you want to sell, I'd recommend running it through that calculator as you're looking at the current nutrition facts on it. Once it says it's approved, meets the Smart Snack guidelines, I would print that page out for your records. The other thing about this is a lot of our schools, we're trying to do our best to build participation, because keeping our programs either, breaking even or making a little bit of money is the thing that's helping support our other school programs, right? So one of the things that I think people don't necessarily think about is that your child nutrition program is not allowed to run a deficit. So if you're spending more money on food than you're receiving in your reimbursements, that deficit has to be made up from your school's general fund. There's no option not to move money over to cover those losses. The USDA requires it. And so what that means is if you're not breaking even, something is getting cut from another school program to cover your meal program losses. And if you're in that situation, then it likely does not make sense to give students other food choices, because that means that less kids, they're going to fill up on other food, even if it's a smarter, slightly healthier version of the junk food that they were hoping to buy. It still means that they're probably not coming, or potentially not coming through your line to take a reimbursable meal. And that might be a choice you'd want to make, not to sell these items. But basically recapping, if you're selling it on campus, it's got to meet the school guideline. If you want to do a fundraiser, let's check in first about it. There are, again, there's a lot of companies that offer fundraising items or programs, and they're smart. They figured out how to make a compliant item. So you could. What I would also really want to, I'd first would ask you, is there a way we could sell something that's non-food related as a fundraiser? And number two is, what do we think we're really going to earn through this fundraiser? Is it really going to offset, is the amount of potential fundraising dollars more than the amount of administrative headache it would be to manage this through our meal program? Because again, $500 for the wrestling club to go on a field trip is a pretty sizable amount of money for them. But between your time, the lost meal serve, like all those other pieces, it might just be easier to just budget to help support their field trip, right? And so I want to help you have thoughtful conversations, again, so that your lives are easier as well. Finally, staff meals. Staff meals are allowable. They're challenging. So I'm here to support whatever decision you want to make. Here's a couple of rules around it. The SFA must charge the USDA value, not the vendor cost of those meals. So, and you must account for that separately, both on your MPRs and also in your financial accounting system. So before you sign up for serve-in teachers, make sure your accountant's on board for it as well. The other part of that is lunch prices for this next school year need to be set at $6 or above. And again, I like all of our food, and I think it's great at our schools. But if I'm a teacher, I don't know if paying $6 is necessarily the value that I don't know if they want to pay $6 for school food. And they might not. And here's the other thing is there's always extra food. So just because you're not selling teacher meals doesn't mean you can't make leftovers available to students and staff at the end of the meal period. And for the most part, that usually accounts for the meals that staff want, right? So you can still take your leftover entrees into the teacher's lounge. It just have to be after the meal period, not during the meal period. If you want to sell adult meals, then sure, you are allowed to, and we can help you set up the rest of those pieces I just talked about. Reach out to us because we need to program that into your mealtime. We also need to set up a payment collection system for your staff, because either they need to pay for those meals or the school needs to pay for those meals. And I promise you, it's a lot easier to collect the money up front than to try to collect at the end of the school year. So if you do want to roll that out, let's be strategic about the rollout. All right, one thing we haven't talked about in either of the trainings is what about special student meal requests? Well, we both can accommodate them and have to. And the way we do that is we have their doctor sign the special meals and accommodation request. And so we provide these at no additional charge for any family that requests these. Again, it needs a disability or an impairment needs to be attached to this request. So this is not for preference. This is something that's based on either what might be in their IEP or 504, or it might be a medical, an allergy, or impairment that needs a modification of the food. We want to get this form signed. We want to communicate with the vendor to make sure they can accommodate it. If we have an accommodation that can't be met or seems challenging, we want to consult both with School Food Solutions and the CDE to get guidance on kind of next steps moving forward. And also the most important piece of this is that we communicate with the family along the way with this process. You know, no one wants no one wants to get sick, right, from food. And so a lot of this is we want to talk to the families about what we can reasonably accommodate and what that's going to look like. And does the kid are they going to want the food? How often do they plan to participate in the program? Because we want to make sure we have those ready and available for them. But we also don't want to order these if they never intend to go through the line, right? So there's some families with allergies so severe, where it's serious contamination issues. And you would know this, right? Because you probably have a peanut-free table, or you may have just a special, like a designated area where that student's eating just because contaminations, they're just so sensitive. And so that's a family that might be talking with you about their preferences, and they may not want school meals, and that's okay. And if they say, I don't want one, I prefer to send from home, you don't need this form. This is only for when they want you to make accommodations. We just want to know what should be omitted and be included, right? And so we want to collect these annually, and we want to share these with the vendor as well so they know. Okay, these are not for preferences, right? So we have plenty of families and students that maybe they don't want meat, or they don't want pork, or they don't want dairy. They're vegetarian, or they're vegan, or they're religious. So that is not a protected class, so we are not obligated to meet those preferences, but we can try, right? And so here's the thing is, we don't need to make a special accommodation if we just menu those items from the start. So here's the good news. Not a ton of pork in child nutrition meals anyway, because it's high in sodium. So a lot of times you're going to see turkey hot dogs or turkey bacon. So those might be perfectly acceptable for those students. We've got, I believe every vendor has vegetarian items on their entrees. I think they've also got a whole variety of dairy-free items. Again, if it's just a milk sensitivity or a preference not to drink milk, well, with offer versus serve, they don't have to take it. So the whole menu is wide open for them. And so you've got a lot of options where you can meet the families, or provide that to all families, right? So at no point there's, this person wants a special meal. No, a lot of people like Meatless Monday. A lot of meat eaters eat vegetarian items too, right? And so it's a very inclusive way to make sure that you've got a menu for all your students, and accommodates all of their preferences. And so that's pretty easy to do with any of our meal vendors. All right, let's talk about professional standards, because you just completed 3 hours of your professional standards. So anyone that's working part-time in the child nutrition program needs at least 4 hours a year. This is going to count for 3 of them. If you do a POS training and a FRL training with us as well, you hit your 4. Or a webinar throughout the rest of the school year is going to count. The USDA allows you to track these hours over 2 years. So if you don't get that 4th hour, that's okay. We can clock it for you next year. If you're a food service director and you're in your audit year, you need 12 hours, and they're going to check on this. And of that 12 hours, 8 of them is probably going to be your food manager's class. So don't say I didn't warn you. But if you're ready to sign up and do the larger food managers class, let me know. And I got places I can send you to recommend. And again, this might be something you're supposed to have it within 30 days of your SFA approval. Although, you know, there's no time like the present. So if that's already passed, we can get you set up right now. All right. We are at our last section, the most important section. The whole reason we're following all of these rules that I've spent the past 2 hours talking about is because we want to serve our students, right? The biggest thing with serving our students is we have an organized line and we have a point of sale, right? We've got whatever we're serving them, we have to record it at the end. We talked about this in the other one. This is your line. And so I want you and I want your staff. So if your boss doesn't support you managing your line the way you want to manage it, we should have a conversation, right? So, or that you should have support, because it's a compliance necessity, right? That I want everyone on board, that students should be going through your line respectfully, calmly, and smoothly. Smooth equals fast. Once that happens, then your line moves really fast. And if it's not calm, collected, you know, we want to stop and reset, right? And so those are very important. It's also important to have your point of sale at the end of the line, so that we're doing those two steps. We're recording the meal and we're verifying that it's compliant. The presentation, again, is very similar to the other slide, but I just want to say it again because presentation truly matters. We eat with our eyes too. And so the more you can you feel confident with offer versus serve, the easier it is to serve students, right? Because if you see them take an apple and an entree, they've already taken a compliant meal. Let them enjoy it. Compliment them on their great choices, right? And let them go through the line. I think students get frustrated when we're confused about what they have to take, or if there's different people serving different days and the rules are different. That's frustrating, and we'd hate for that to be the reason that they don't go through the line, because there's plenty of opportunities to learn the rules, and I'll talk till I'm hoarse, helping you figure those out. So if you or your team doesn't get offer versus serve, let's make sure you're solid on those, so that doesn't become a frustration point with your kiddos. And again, the big thing is let's claim all the meals we serve. So if a kid walks away with just a milk, we don't get to claim that. If they walk away with just an entree, that's not reimbursable. Let's make sure we send them back to take reimbursable meals. It's okay to say, no, you can't take that unless you take all the required components. And so that's just smart line management, and that's smart meal program, because you're both giving them the opportunity to take the fruit or the vegetable, and you're getting reimbursed for it. The next level side of this is the presentation, right? So if you have kit funds, you can spend it on your facilities. That even includes, painting walls, changing out lighting. If you can get better quality lights, if fluorescent bulbs are just making everything flickering and making everything look a little drab, get better lights. That's not that expensive. If it gets kids excited to come up to your window, it's a cool idea. Get a disco ball. Why not, right? Get them excited to come through your line. Put a Bluetooth speaker on and have music going. Make sure it looks like a place you would want to eat, right? Some schools, the only option you have is that folding table, and I get it. I put a kitchen in a closet back at my school, and it was terrible because they had to kick. It was the teacher's lounge in the closet, and they lost it, and then it just became just the kitchen. But we painted it, we made it look better than just a closet, and that matters, right? Even if it's just little bins and tablecloths, that's something, right? Get them printed with your school's logo on it. You can spice it up however you want, because remember, people eat with their eyes too. All right, but the summary of the point of sale in the service, you gotta count them when they go through that line, right? We talked about that. Wellness committees, you gotta have one. This is a requirement of the NSLP program. You both have a document that outlines all of your procedures. This both talks about child nutrition, but this also has things about recess, things about PE, whether it's breaks, access to water. It's a pretty, if you utilize the templates that the USDA has put out, it's a pretty comprehensive document. And they put a lot of stuff in it. We need to sit down, and we can help, but ultimately it's you and your school. You want to make sure that it matches what your school's doing, and also that what is in there is what your school wants to enforce, right? There's no sense in writing a policy that doesn't match what you actually want to do in practice, and that just gets shelved. You also should have buy-in from this. So you're going to be required to hold at minimum 2 wellness meetings a year. Now, this is part of the child nutrition program, but this doesn't have to be all on your plate, and you don't have to be the head of the committee. You could sit on the committee, but this is something that's really good to delegate to, whether there's a coach, a PE teacher, a health and fitness club. Other people can champion wellness at your school. It's not just on your shoulders. One of the things I like to talk about in this section, a question just came up yesterday, is Grubhub and Uber Eats deliveries at school. If you're a high school, you might have kiddos with their own phones ordering those meals and sneaking off campus to pick them up. If you're at an elementary school, you might have parents forgetting to pack a lunch and just sending those, just cold dropping the Uber Eats at school. Also, Uber Eats have been real savvy too. I've heard schools say that the guys just say that it's the uncle. So I'm the kid's uncle. Here's their lunch, right? But that was my reaction too, Karen. I was like, oh, they're smart. Well, they don't get paid, right? If they're not dropping it off. We are now with universal meals. Every single student that wants a meal has access to it. I think if you want to say no Uber Eats, no fast food at all, no meals that aren't prepared at home, you can. Why? Because you have a viable, healthy alternative. And how would you put this rule into effect? You'd put it in your wellness policy, right? And so I think if you want to, I think you want to make this process and document work for your school. So if there are health-based incentives that you want to push forward, your wellness policy is the document that you can use to give those some teeth. So this also applies to the other thing that I get a lot of questions on, which I think this is very useful for, is celebrations in the classroom, right? So whether it's a teacher that feels strongly, whether it's a teacher that wants to, and this can also just be food in the classroom or food as a reward, which again, not a big fan of, but I'm a biased source. But if you have a teacher that feels really strongly about handing out candy for correct answers, or throwing birthday parties, or if it's become disruptive because families are bringing in too many sugary treats for their kiddo's birthday, that you can ban that. Why not, right? And this is the perfect place where you can do it. And it gives you some strength in having those conversations, right? So you're not saying, I don't want Ryan to have a happy birthday. That's not why I'm saying no. I'm saying no because our wellness policy does not allow that. And that's what's been approved by our wellness committee and approved by our board. My hands are tied. It's in our policy. And then when your family push back, you say, great, you should come to our wellness meeting and you can suggest that as a change, right? And then so we divert them we've got an outlet for their ideas and suggestions as well. Finally, and again, this isn't breaking news, but students that participate in school breakfast programs and lunch programs for that matter, they do better in school. And I think this should be as kind of no duh as it sounds, that eating healthy, having a healthy breakfast and having a healthy lunch have positive effects throughout the day, and have positive effects on behavior. And this is something and again, decoupling food from income, I think, is one of the most important things California has done. It doesn't matter what your tax return says. That does not mean someone gave you a healthy breakfast that day. Moreover, so here, as I'm quickly climbing up onto my soapbox, here's kind of my final thoughts for today, and then we'll open it up for questions. Is everything works better at scale, right? If we can get more kiddos coming through our line, it means that we'll have more revenue coming into our program, that we can hire another person to help us, that our vendors going to have more options to, give us more interested in giving us more options to serve different things. And so things to leave on with this program is, and I said this a couple of times, but I want to make sure that everyone gets this, because this is the biggest change to this program since like the 60s. These meals are for every student. It is completely decoupled for income. And even though we are still collecting income information, the first breakfast and first lunch of every day is available at no cost, right? So it's just every school now. This is brand new. So parents that weren't paying attention, yeah, they might have had to pay for meals 2 years ago. Their school may have still been charging. But that's not true anymore. And my take is that although this program's not guaranteed in perpetuity, I can't imagine it going away anytime soon. So we want to be very clear with our families that it is for everyone. If a high-income family comes to eat a meal, it is not a zero-sum game. It does not take a meal away from anyone else. think as all of you on this call know, because you've had to clean up after meal service, there's always enough food, right? There's always extra food. These meals are for everyone. Second, this just helps the school out, families. And here's the thing, most of us on here are charter schools. We're schools of choice, right? Families come to us for a reason, and they want to help us, and they want our schools to succeed. And even if you're not a charter school, I mean, it's not like your families are, that even if you're there and you're in your enrollment boundaries, it's not like they don't want you to succeed. Everyone wants to help out. And so when you tell someone, you know what would really help our school? If you don't go to the grocery store this weekend and buy a bunch of extra food, and if you don't spend time meal prepping and packing lunches, if you don't do all of those things, that helps our school. Families like that. That's a cool value proposition there, right? Is less money on groceries, less work the night before, less work at 8 p.m. And it's helping the school. Like that's everyone I think can get on board with that. And again, to that point, that helps families at all income levels, right? Like it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you forgot to go to the store, no one likes running to the store late at night. Like that's a lifesaver to know that there is going to be a hot breakfast or complete breakfast ready for your kiddo the next day at school. I didn't cite any of the studies because but I promise you, I'll eat my words if you could find something to the contrary. I promise you that the research is pretty consistent that healthy, nutritious meals aid in learning, improve education outcomes, and reduce behavior issues. We all get hangry, and so that also is just kind of common sense too. One of the things that's not common sense, but I think there's a very interesting white paper out there that I did not cite, is that these meals are deflationary. So there was a study before, this is pre-COVID, but they looked at schools in CEP schools and the effect on the price of groceries in those communities. And it actually lowered, because so many meals were available at school, so many less people went to the grocery store to buy food. It actually lowered overall demand for food and lowered prices locally at grocery stores. So even if your kid doesn't go to your school, you're helping the community, which I think is very cool. Finally, they are healthy. This is the only, you have no other, I mean, you may visually kind of inspect what kids are bringing, but you have no other idea. It's just not practical to monitor what everyone's bringing to school every day. And this is the only meal that meets a whole host of government standards that both cap calories and sugar and sodium, that include whole grains, that mandate fruits and vegetables. That's really cool that you can feel confident that you are getting a baseline of healthy food to all of your students. And we should feel good about that. And we should tell people that, right? Because I feel like there's a bunch of movies in the 80s and 90s that really trashed on school meals. And that's just not the same anymore. This is just what we're seeing at schools today is not what was served in slapstick 80s comedies, right? Like it's just wildly different. Finally, my final point, if I didn't catch you on any of those other bullet points, it's in ed code now. It is the rules, right? And so we want to make sure that both for your reimbursable and your child nutrition audits, as well as the rest of your either charter renewals, you're in good standings with your authorizers, your parents, your community. This is something we have to do, and we want to do it, and we want to do it well.